They once graced the silver screen with elegance, power, and mystery. Their names lit up marquees, their faces sold tickets by the millions. In the golden age of Hollywood, they were royalty, beloved by audiences, pursued by studios, envied by peers. But behind the glamour was a cruel truth. Fame fades fast, and Hollywood forgets even faster, and whose legacies were nearly erased. Their names may have been lost in the shuffle, but today, Stage Whisper dares to remember them. 1. Marie Prevost, the starlet who died hungry. In the 1920s, Marie Prevost was the embodiment of silent film glamour. With her wide eyes, soft features, and a flirty charm that captured the screen, she starred in more than 120 films. She worked with Ernst Lubitsch, appeared alongside John Barrymore, and was once handpicked by Mack Sennett himself. Marie wasn't just a pretty face. She was a comedic talent with dramatic depth, praised for her spontaneity and allure. But like so many women in early Hollywood, Marie's beauty was both her ticket to fame and her eventual curse. As the industry shifted and sound films emerged, her career faltered. She gained weight, something the studio executives couldn't tolerate. Roles dried up, public interest waned. And Marie, who once commanded headlines, was soon relegated to uncredited bit parts and B-movie appearances. Her descent was brutal. Ravaged by depression and alcohol, she isolated herself from friends. Offers stopped coming. By the early 1930s, Marie was broke, alone, and living in a tiny apartment in Los Angeles. On January 21, 1937, Marie Prevost was found dead in her bed. The coroner ruled it malnutrition and acute alcoholism. She had starved to death. Literally, there were no mourners, no funeral, no flowers. Her body went unclaimed for days. Marie's only companion in those final moments? Her dachshund, who, according to grim tabloid reports, survived by feeding on her remains. A cruel urban legend? Maybe. But even so, it became the punchline of her life. A cautionary tale for young actresses. A tragic whisper buried beneath old reels of celluloid. Marie Prevost once made millions laugh. Hollywood, in the end, didn't even notice she was gone. 2. Billie Holiday. The voice that bled, then broke. Her voice could haunt you. Smooth, smoky, aching with a sorrow too deep for words. Billie Holiday didn't just sing, she confessed. Songs like Strange Fruit and God Bless the Child weren't mere hits, they were soul carvings, etched into American memory. But behind the legend was a woman constantly at war, with racism, addiction, the law, and her own broken heart. Born in 1915 in the harsh streets of Baltimore, Billie grew up around abuse, poverty, and neglect. Music became her salvation. By her early 20s, she was a sensation in Harlem's clubs, captivating audiences with phrasing so raw and intimate, it felt like sin to listen. But as her fame grew, so did her demons. Billie became addicted to heroin, a habit that made her a target. The U.S. government, obsessed with punishing black jazz musicians, used her as a scapegoat. She was hounded by the FBI, arrested repeatedly, and had her cabaret card revoked, preventing her from performing in clubs. She spent her final days in a hospital bed, under police guard, denied access to proper care. Her bank account held just 70 cents. Her body, wasting away from liver failure, was bruised from handcuffs. On July 17, 1959, Billie Holiday died alone at age 44. There was no grand Hollywood tribute. No official apology, just silence. They silenced her voice in life, and they tried to erase her in death. But Billie Holiday, even in her fall, refused to be forgotten. Her voice still drips from old vinyl like honey over wounds. And when the world sings her songs now, it's a soft rebellion against the injustice that consumed her. 3. Lupe Velez, the Mexican Spitfire who burned too bright. She was fire, pure, untamed, unapologetic fire. Lupe Velez, dubbed the Mexican Spitfire, was one of the first Latina actresses to break into Hollywood's golden circle. In an era where exoticism was marketable, Lupe brought raw charisma, comedic timing, and electric energy to the screen. Audiences couldn't take their eyes off her. But off-screen, she was too bold, too passionate, too loud for the rigid, whitewashed Hollywood machine. They loved her when she was profitable, when her accent and temper could be turned into punchlines. But they never accepted her. Lupe craved love, desperately. Her relationships with stars like Gary Cooper and Johnny Weissmuller were fiery, chaotic, and publicly scrutinized. The tabloids fed off her heartbreaks. Studios rolled their eyes at her breakdowns, and the woman who once lit up the screen began to unravel in full view. In 1944, pregnant and unmarried, an unforgivable sin in that era, Lupe saw no way out. She meticulously planned her death: a silk nightgown, roses by her bed, and a fatal overdose of Seconal. She was just 36. The story should have ended there, with solemnity, maybe grace. But the tabloids tore her apart. A tasteless urban myth circulated that she had slipped and drowned in a toilet. It was a lie, but one that stuck. It reduced her to a grotesque punchline. Lupe Velez was a trailblazer, a star who fought tooth and nail to exist in a world that made no space for her. And in the end, Hollywood didn't just let her fall. It laughed. But we're not laughing. We remember. 4. Hedy Lamarr, the beauty too brilliant for Hollywood. They called her the most beautiful woman in the world. Hedy Lamarr wasn't just admired, she was worshipped. With her sculpted face and hypnotic gaze, she captivated audiences across continents. From Algiers to Samson and Delilah, she played the seductive goddess Hollywood wanted her to be. But that wasn't who she truly was. Behind the camera, Hedy was an inventor, a genius, a restless mind trapped in a system that only cared for her face. While men in boardrooms mocked her intelligence, she was busy crafting a frequency-hopping signal to aid Allied torpedoes in World War II, a technology that would later evolve into Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth. She never made a dime from it. Hollywood had no interest in her brain, and when her youth faded, so did the roles. She tried to hold on, through plastic surgery, through scandal, through desperate attempts to stay relevant. But it was no use. By the 1970s, Hedy was broke, reclusive, and stealing small items from department stores. She spent her final decades alone in Florida, communicating with the outside world only through phone calls. No spotlight, no red carpet, just silence. When she died in 2000, few headlines followed. The world barely blinked. She gave us beauty. She gave us invention. And Hollywood returned the favor with indifference. But make no mistake, Hedy Lamarr wasn't just a pretty face. She was a mind far ahead of her time. And in a town built on illusion, that might have been her greatest crime. 5. Wallace Reed, the matinee idol, Hollywood watched die. In the silent era, there was no man more beloved than Wallace Reed. With his all-American looks, disarming smile, and easy charm, he was the heartthrob of the 1910s and early 1920s. Studios branded him the screen's most perfect lover, and fans swarmed theaters just to see his face flicker to life on the screen. But Reed's golden image was built atop a dark foundation. In 1919, while filming a project in Oregon, he was injured in a train accident. To keep the film on schedule, studio doctors gave him morphine. It was supposed to be temporary. It wasn't. Reed became addicted, silently, desperately. The studio knew. But instead of offering real help, they kept him working. Film after film. Schedule after schedule. Because Wallace Reed was still making them money. As the addiction worsened, so did his health. His weight dropped, his performances weakened. Yet the cameras kept rolling. By 1922, his body gave out. He was committed to a sanitarium, emaciated and broken. He died there in January 1923 at just 31 years old. The headlines mourned him briefly, then they moved on. Reed became the cautionary tale Hollywood refused to learn from. A pretty face sacrificed on the altar of profit. A man destroyed not by scandal or failure, but by the indifference of a machine that devours its own. He once defined the dream. In the end, he exposed the nightmare. 6. Gail Russell, the shy star who drowned in loneliness. Gail Russell didn't ask for stardom. She was painfully shy, terrified of cameras, and plagued by self-doubt. But Hollywood saw a face it could sell. Soft, porcelain skin, eyes that held oceans of sorrow. Paramount signed her before she had ever acted a day in her life. And for a while, it worked. She starred opposite John Wayne in Angel and the Bad Man. Audiences adored her quiet vulnerability. Critics said she had a haunted beauty, a tragic grace. But what they didn't see was the storm underneath. To cope with the anxiety of performing, Gail began drinking, quietly, heavily, obsessively. Booze became her crutch, then her cage. She showed up to sets slurring, trembling, lost in fog. The studios tried to spin it, then covered it up, and finally let her go. Her reputation crumbled. The phone stopped ringing. She lived alone in a small Los Angeles apartment, her career in ruins, her face no longer in magazines but in court records and police reports. On August 26, 1961, Gail was found dead at age 36. Liver damage, malnutrition, surrounded by empty bottles, No suicide note, no funeral headlines. The actress who once glowed on screen had quietly faded into the shadows, unseen, unheard, and heartbreakingly human. Hollywood sold her fragility, then punished her for it. 7. Eric Fleming, the leading man who vanished beneath the river. He wasn't born into glamour. Eric Fleming came from hardship, raised in a broken home, the victim of a violently abusive father. At just 8 years old, he ran away and lived on the streets. Later, he joined the Merchant Marines, suffered a disfiguring accident, and underwent painful reconstructive surgery just to resemble the man he once was. But somehow, through grit and raw charisma, Fleming rose. By the 1950s, he had clawed his way into Hollywood and became a household name as trail boss Gil Favor on the hit TV series Rawhide. He was stoic, commanding, a natural-born leader on screen. Fans loved him. Studios respected him. A long career seemed inevitable. Then came 1966. While filming High Jungle, an adventure film deep in the Amazon for MGM, Fleming was shooting a scene in a canoe on the Huallaga River in Peru. Something went wrong. The boat overturned. The river, swollen and furious, swallowed him whole. He was 41 years old. There was no dramatic comeback, no posthumous Oscar, just a tragic end on foreign soil. His body was recovered days later. The film was scrapped, and the headlines faded almost as quickly as they had appeared. Eric Fleming didn't die of addiction. He didn't die of scandal. He died working, chasing a role that was supposed to reignite his career. And yet, his death became just another footnote, lost beneath the roaring current of Hollywood history. He fought so hard to survive his past. But even that wasn't enough to save him from being forgotten. 8. Virginia Rappy, the starlet destroyed by scandal. Before her name was dragged through mud, Virginia Rapp was a rising star. A silent film actress and fashion model, she embodied the modern woman of the 1920s, independent, stylish, and unafraid. She was poised for bigger roles, rubbing shoulders with industry elite, and working her way up the Hollywood ladder. Then came a party that ended her life and shattered her legacy. On Labor Day weekend in 1921, Virginia attended a raucous gathering at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco, hosted by Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle, one of Hollywood's biggest comedy stars. Within hours, Virginia was found writhing in pain. 4 days later, she was dead. Bladder rupture, internal injuries. The public wanted answers. The media delivered scandal. Arbuckle was accused of rape and manslaughter. Though he was eventually acquitted after 3 explosive trials, Virginia's name was smeared beyond recognition. Rumors swirled. Some said she was promiscuous. Others claimed she had a mysterious illness. Hollywood turned its back. Her death was no longer a tragedy. It was tabloid fodder. She was 26. No memorial stood in her name. No justice was truly served. Just silence. Shaped by misogyny and sensationalism, Arbuckle's career was destroyed, but Virginia's memory suffered worse. Erasure. She was a victim twice over, first by fate, then by the cruel machinery of gossip and shame. And while Hollywood has long since washed its hands of the scandal, the truth still lingers like a whisper in old hotel halls. Virginia Rappy deserved better. 9. John Gilbert, the great lover. Hollywood silenced. In the 1920s, John Gilbert was Hollywood's ultimate romantic hero. With brooding eyes and a magnetic presence, he was known as the great lover of the silver screen. Audiences swooned, studios cashed in, and when he paired with Greta Garbo, sparks ignited that transcended celluloid. But like so many kings of the silent era, Gilbert's crown did not survive the arrival of sound. As the talkies dawned, whispers began, that his voice was too high, too strange. But those close to him knew the truth. His voice was fine. His real sin was pride. Gilbert clashed with MGM mogul Louis B. Mayer, publicly, bitterly. Mayer, a man who never forgave or forgot, allegedly sabotaged Gilbert's transition to sound. He was cast in weak roles, given rushed dialogue, and turned into a punchline. Audiences drifted. Scripts stopped coming. Gilbert drank to dull the betrayal. The charming rogue on screen became a ghost in real life. By the early 1930s, he was living alone in a modest home, a shadow of his former self. On January 9, 1936, he suffered a fatal heart attack. He was just 38. There were no long obituaries, no grand eulogies. Garbo didn't attend the funeral, but she mourned in silence. John Gilbert was once Hollywood's golden man, but when he refused to bow, Hollywood broke him. And just like that, the lover who once conquered millions faded into the final credits. 10. Barbara Payton, the starlet who fell faster than she rose. Barbara Payton had the kind of beauty that made producers stop mid-sentence. Blonde, bold, and sultry, she burst into Hollywood in the late 1940s with all the makings of a classic bombshell. And for a moment, it looked like she'd have it all. She starred opposite Gary Cooper in Dallas. She was signed to Universal. Her name lit up gossip columns and studio contracts. But beneath the surface, Barbara was volatile, restless, impulsive, and drawn to danger. Her personal life spiraled into scandal. She bounced between men, movie stars, crooks, drunks. Her most infamous entanglement was a love triangle with actor Franchout Tone and tough guy Tom Neal. It ended with Neal brutally beating Tone into a coma. The public was horrified. Studios were done with her. By the mid-1950s, Barbara was blacklisted. She began working in B-movies, then not at all. Her life became a haze of alcohol, bar fights, and arrests. She turned to sex work to survive. Friends abandoned her. Hollywood pretended she never existed. She spent her final years living in seedy hotels and back alleys, her once glamorous face ravaged by addiction. On May 8, 1967, Barbara Payton died of heart and liver failure. She was 39. Her obituary was short. Her legacy was forgotten. Hollywood devoured her, first her beauty, then her spirit, and finally her memory. Barbara once wrote a memoir titled I Am Not Ashamed. Perhaps she wasn't, but the industry that used and discarded her should be. 11. Carl Dane, the silent giant, crushed by sound. Carl Dane stood tall, literally. A towering figure with a warm face and comedic instincts, he brought laughter and heart to silent films throughout the 1920s. Born in Denmark, he came to America with nothing, worked in steel mills, and somehow found his way into the movies. He hit his stride in films like The Big Parade and Rookies, where his pairing with George K. Arthur created a beloved comedic duo. Audiences adored him. He was more than a sidekick. He was the soul of the screen. But when sound arrived, the laughter stopped. His thick Danish accent didn't suit Hollywood's new talking pictures. Directors passed him over. The studio canceled his contract. And just like that, the silent giant was rendered mute in an industry that no longer had space for him. Dane tried to stay afloat. He opened a cafe. No one came. He sold tickets outside movie theaters, where he had once starred inside. He tried to launch a mining business. It failed. By 1934, he was broke, jobless, and forgotten. On April 14th, he walked into his small Los Angeles apartment, pulled out a revolver, and ended his life. He was 47. There was no funeral procession. No Hollywood tribute. Just a brief newspaper note and then silence. Carl Dane once made the world laugh. In the end, Hollywood couldn't even remember his name. 12. Jack Butel, the star who was never allowed to shine. Jack Butel had the look, brooding eyes, a lean frame, and that cowboy charm that seemed tailor-made for post-war Hollywood. In 1943, he landed what should have been a dream role, the smoldering outlaw Billy the Kid in Howard Hughes's controversial Western, The Outlaw. The film was delayed for years due to censorship battles over Jane Russell's revealing wardrobe, but when it finally hit theaters, the controversy made headlines. Jack Butel's name was on everyone's lips. He should have been the next big thing. But Howard Hughes had other plans. Hughes, known for his paranoia and possessiveness, locked Butel into an exclusive contract and then buried him. He refused to loan him out to other studios. He shelved projects. He smothered Jack's rising star with silence. Years passed. Jack waited, powerless. Roles slipped away. So did momentum. By the time Hughes let go, Hollywood had moved on. Butel tried to revive his career with small roles, most notably in the TV series Judge Roy Bean, but the magic and the opportunity was gone. He lived out the rest of his life in obscurity, a man whose shot at stardom had been stolen by ego and control. When he died in 1989, few even knew he was still alive. Jack Butel wasn't destroyed by scandal or addiction. He was simply never allowed to become who he was meant to be. In Hollywood, that's a quieter kind of death, but no less cruel. 13. Tom Neal, the actor who fell into the shadows and took a life. Tom Neal had all the makings of a star. Handsome, athletic, and sharp-witted, he was a college-educated boxer-turned-actor who found his niche in gritty B-movie noir. In 1945, he delivered a chilling, career-defining performance in Detour, a low-budget film that would become a cult classic, praised for its bleak fatalism. But Tom Neal's life would prove even darker than his movies. Known for his volcanic temper and volatile personal life, Neil's downfall began with a single brutal act. In 1951, he attacked fellow actor Franchot Tone in a jealous rage over actress Barbara Payton. The beating was savage. Tone suffered a crushed cheekbone, a broken nose, and a concussion. Hollywood recoiled. Neil was blacklisted overnight. Studios wanted nothing to do with him. His career plummeted. His name became synonymous not with talent, but violence. The final blow came in 1965 when his third wife, Gail Bennett, was found shot in the back of the head. Neil claimed it was an accident during a struggle, but the jury didn't buy it. He was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and served 6 years in prison. When he was released, he lived quietly, anonymously. No fanfare, no redemption arc. In 1972, just months after regaining freedom, Tom Neil died of heart failure. He was 58. There were no retrospectives, no second chances. Just a cautionary tale, a man who blurred the line between noir antihero and real-life tragedy until it consumed him. In Hollywood, some stars fade, others self-destruct. Tom Neil did both. 14. Jean Spangler, the starlet who vanished into thin air. She was young, beautiful, and right on the edge of something big. Jean Spangler worked as a model and dancer in Los Angeles, slowly building her presence in film. She had bit parts in Young Man with a Horn and When My Baby Smiles at Me, and those who met her swore she had that spark, that undefinable it. Then, on October 7, 1949, she walked out of her Los Angeles home and was never seen again. She told her sister-in-law she was going to meet her ex-husband about child support, and then perhaps see a friend named Kirk. She never returned. 2 days later, her purse was found near the entrance to Griffith Park. Inside was a cryptic note, open quote, Kirk, can't wait any longer. Going to see Dr. Scott. It will work best this way while mother is away. Close quote. No one ever figured out who Kirk was, though rumors swirled around actor Kirk Douglas, who later denied knowing her. No one found a Dr. Scott, and no trace of Jean was ever recovered. She simply disappeared. Was it an abortion gone wrong? A secret affair silenced? A Hollywood cover-up? We'll never know. Her case remains open, her name mostly forgotten, buried beneath decades of new scandals. But Jean Spangler's final walk remains one of Hollywood's most chilling mysteries. A young woman swallowed whole by the city that promised her everything. And in a town obsessed with stars, Jean was one who flickered out before she could even glow. 15. Thelma Todd, the ice cream blonde who never woke up. She was the kind of funny that could hold her own with the Marx Brothers, the kind of glamorous that lit up a room before she even spoke. Thelma Todd was known as the ice cream blonde, smart, sharp-tongued, and versatile. She appeared in over 120 films in the 1920s and 30s, and audiences adored her for being more than just another pretty face. But Hollywood never let her fully escape the shadows. Todd opened a successful cafe in Pacific Palisades, a rare move for an actress at the time. She was business-savvy, ambitious, and fiercely independent. But behind the smiles, her world was fraught with tension. Her business partner had mob ties. Her ex-husband was abusive. She was tangled in affairs, whispers, and threats. On December 16, 1935, she was found dead in her car, parked in her garage, engine running, body slumped. Carbon monoxide poisoning. The official cause was accidental death. But few believed it. Her nose was broken. Her lip split. She had argued with someone the night before. Some claimed she was silenced for knowing too much. Others suspected a lover's quarrel turned deadly. No one was charged. The case was quietly closed. She was 29. Todd's funeral came and went. Hollywood moved on. Her cafe remained. Her films faded. Her name, like so many, drifted into oblivion. But the whispers never stopped. Thelma Todd was radiant, clever, and ahead of her time. And like too many women in early Hollywood, her light didn't simply dim, it was extinguished. And no one ever turned the camera back on.